people here is absolutely magic.
I'm a transgender man. I've been living as a man for over 15 years. In 2008, I tried to apply to have my birth certificate changed to be male, and it was rejected because the current legislation requires that I have surgical alteration to my reproductive organs. That means I need a hysterectomy.
This birth certificate reform will let transgender and gender diverse people have birth certificates that reflect our gender identities. Having a birth certificate that's inaccurate makes us unsafe, forces us to out ourselves, and is invalidating. This reform sends a strong message to trans and gender diverse people that we're welcome, that we're included, that our society is starting to recognise who we really are and cares about our safety and our rights.
No longer is surgery compulsory. Some people, of course, still feel they want and need that. Also, there are now more options than male or female, which covers the roughly 50%, according to most of the Australian research pieces, that is that part of the spectrum for trans and gender diverse, that not everyone is binary male or binary female.
For Victorian-born adults, filling in the change of record is pretty easy. You have to include a stat check and a supporting statement by another adult who's known you for at least 12 months. For Victorian-born children, a parent or legal guardian can apply for a change of record with the child's consent, and when the parent believes this change is in the best interest of the child, and it must include a stat dec by the parents with supporting statements by a doctor or psychologist, or an adult other than a parent who's known the child for at least 12 months. Some people might be wondering why all this fuss and change is even necessary. For a cisgendered person like me, cisgender meaning a person whose gender identity matches the sex they were assigned at birth, imagine every time you need to show your ID to pick up a parcel or get something renewed, and someone looks at that documentation because it doesn't match the person standing in front of them.
Two of my trans male or trans masculine colleagues needing to get documents done, they walk in, sure, with their names saying, I don't know, Fred and John, but still with female on. And I know it's a little stereotypical, but they've got beards, they've got deep voices, and they're outright laughed at, saying, what the hell's going on here? Or perhaps, questioned as if there's some sort of fraud.
There is a cost involved with making the change, and thanks to a generous donation last year by Vic Bears, Transgender Victoria have been able to create a fund for trans and gender diverse people who require assistance in paying their application fees, which can be found on their website. You can also apply to have your name changed at the same time as you change your gender marker to help keep the cost down as well.
Having eagerly done this myself to change the marker is $110.50. Postage for the new birth certificate back is $10 on top of that. And yes, I totally acknowledge for a lot of trans and gender diverse people who are on various benefits, etc., that is a lot of money, so that hopefully will assist.
Look, I find filling in forms like this so confusing at the best of times, and I'm always asking someone else for help. But if you're confused, there's plenty of really helpful resources on Transgender Victoria's website to make it as simple as possible for you to understand what to do. And if you've still got queries, LGBTIQ Legal Service Coordinator Sam Elkin and representatives from Birth, Deaths and Marriages and Transgender Victoria will be running a practical info session on Zoom about the new reform on Monday the 18th of May at 1 p.m. Even though it's online, there's limited capacity, and yesterday tickets were added to the event for more people to be able to access it. But if you can't, the event will be recorded for those who are unable to attend.
It's a great community initiative, and to some extent, it's a little bit of the celebration that we would have liked to have done on Friday, May the 1st, but we'll do a bit of that now, and I will be pushing hard for when we can gather in reasonable numbers again to have a show us your affirmed gender party, which I think would be really good as well. But I think there will also be a sense, in a way, of celebration of this finally going through, which will be really good on that Change of ID Day webinar as well.
Victoria became the 5th state and territory in Australia to adopt the birth certificate reform, which brings us in line with Tasmania, Northern Territory, South Australia and the ACT. But there's still work to be done. For those who were born outside of Victoria but live in the state, you're able to apply for a gender recognition certificate, but it's not what everyone was hoping.
The gender recognition certificate is not as effective as we might want, so there's probably still room for further improvement in Victoria on that angle as well. I've got to say, when I got my first passport with female on it in 2015, it was like oh wow. And so I'm eagerly, I'm not, given that we're approaching winter, camped by my letterbox waiting for mine to come. And we would add that, with everyone working from home, it might be harder for births, deaths and marriages to get a few things done. But, and also there could be other priorities, but I know that when I get it and finally have that sense of external affirmation as well, I think that's a really important factor, to have that sense of joy that, the officialdom is saying, hey, you are valid, is a really good thing.
For more information about the Change Your ID webinar, or how you can apply to have your gender marker changed on your birth certificate, head to the Transgender Victoria website at tgv.org.au.